I want to be the polished version of myself, but I tend to want to skip the awkward phase. The process of not looking so well put together while still learning. But one of the insights I'm having is that this awkward phase is evidence of success becoming reality. It's not evidence that you're failing, but the contrary. It's that you're willing to make the investment and pay the price that it is required to become competent and useful and to level up. Something I'm realizing as I film every day is that the hardest part isn't recording, but it's tolerating this awkward phase where I'm still showing up, don't really know what I'm doing per se because it's new to me, but I am bringing my experience, I am bringing what I've learned, my understanding, and I'm doing my best to translate that into video, which is hopefully building an impactful experience for the viewers, for you, and for people who watch this in the future. See, there is a phase where your voice doesn't sound how you want it to, or your ideas feel messy, your presence in whichever skill you're pursuing, and in this case being in front of a camera, it can feel strange, and I've been tempted to judge myself before I even give any of this a chance to turn into reality or to even share it with others. So, some things I've been learning as I'm continuing this journey is that you can't skip the beginner version of yourself, and it's okay to allow others to see that part of you. If they're not going to like you in the beginning version, they might like you in the polished version, but ideally you want to find the people that will like you all along the way. I think part of the reason people never start is because they want to begin as the version of themselves that they imagine they're becoming. They want to begin as almost like master level, but it's not like that. There are levels to every skill, and we all have to start somewhere. We all have to start ideally from zero and work our way up. You don't start confident, but you become confident by surviving the early reps and by allowing yourself to continue to show up despite the awkward phases. I'm finding that in my own life, in my own journey right now, as I'm continuing to show up, really taking this seriously to build something. And it's not because it's just me, but I feel like it's bigger than me. I'm doing this because I feel like it's bigger than me and it can be something positive, almost like learning to harness your talents and mastering your gifts so that it becomes of service to others. And as you do that along the way, I think you become a better person, as we talked about in some of our videos. Another main point I've learned is that feeling cringe and perhaps even a sense of embarrassment or even anxiety, it's part of the process. If something feels awkward, that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It just means that it's new. And if it's new, your nervous system is going to treat it like a threat until perhaps you gain awareness of how to properly handle it and what to do in those kinds of situations. For example, with social anxiety, you may sense that your breathing is starting to tense up or become more shallow. Maybe your thoughts start to race and you're so worried about other people and what they think of you that you forget to take a moment to slow down, take some deep breaths, and start thinking outside of yourself. Many times, chances are, people are just trying to get through their day and they're thinking about their own lives and themselves and not even really considering what you think they're thinking about. So that's helped me in my own social anxiety, but that's one example. And another main insight is that the reps are training you right here or right now so that you're more skillful in the future. Sometimes it's easy to think that, wow, by me being awkward right now, this is how it's always going to be. But that's not the case, especially if you're taking time to review what you're doing, to evaluate it and find ways to improve. That's going to help you to slowly get out of that awkward phase and get closer to mastery, get closer to becoming a better version of yourself that we're striving for on this channel. And so that's one thing to consider. It's also about becoming less fragile, less dependent on feeling ready, and less controlled by your own self-image and the judgments of others. Don't get me wrong, you don't want to be like crazy about what you're doing, but at the same time, it's okay to have a little bit of vulnerability because I believe that's where you're on the edge of the comfort zone where real growth is happening and is available to you. But if you stay in your comfort zone, if you stay where you feel safe for too long, you're not going to really grow. And that's what we're trying to avoid here in this challenge as well as on this channel. We want to voluntarily do the hard work now so that life can be easier later and we can be better along the way. Okay, another thing is that public reps compound faster. So when you create in private, you learn, but when you publish, you confront the full emotional weight of being seen. This is where identity shift can happen. I'm finding that out for myself because for so long I would consider myself creative, but also I've considered myself private. I've had these ideas of things that I want to do, and I do them, but I don't share them. And it's gotten to a point where I realize that's kind of selfish of me. Especially knowing that I personally want to create an online brand. I want to build an online business, and I want to help people throughout the world, transform their lives, build momentum, and become the versions that they want to be in a simple, systematic way that can get them results. So in order for me to really do that, I have to branch out of my own private safety zone, my own bubble. And that's been challenging, but it's also been the most rewarding. So consider this next time you feel stuck. Ask yourself, am I doing what I've always done, or am I taking the risk and pushing myself ever so slightly further and further outside of my comfort zone, outside of what I'm used to? Because if you're doing the latter part, then it's almost a guarantee that you're going to start to see improvements, or at least gain new feedback, new information about how to adjust and how to improve. Alrighty, now I do want to say that if you're in your own awkward phase, whether it's at the gym, with your business, your content, your career, your art, your social life, your faith, or your health, don't misread discomfort as a sign to stop. See it as the exact sign that you're entering the part where growth actually starts, where you're entering the next level. Because as we advance, we'll start to document more and more about the process of transformation and how it's working. But one thing I can say now is generally when you're entering a new level, you have this initial phase where it's awkward and uncomfortable. Then you start to get a rhythm, you start to understand, so things can start to improve. Then it starts to stagnate, that's kind of the middle. And then you'll have to repeat the cycle where you push yourself to go to the next level. That's if you want to, because not everyone can choose to do that. I should say it this way, not everyone wants to do that. But this is really about you and you alone. You versus you. Who you were back then, who you are now, and who you want to be. We have to find the balance and synergy so they all get along. And you do that by reconciling and resolving your past, the traumas, the mistakes, the pain points, learning from them so you can apply that here and now in your daily actions and what you're doing in the present. And ideally, by taking moments of reflection and contemplating where you want to go, you'll take all that from the past, the present, and move towards those targets, those goals and objectives of the future. And it kind of feeds onto itself in a positive upward spiral. Now, this is something that's important because I don't want you to feel like you have to be the guy who keeps waiting until he feels impressive enough to begin. I'd rather you be the person who lets the awkward version of yourself show so that you earn the knowledge and the skills that it takes to become the better version of yourself. I say that for you, but I'm living it for myself. I tell myself this every day, and it's the reason why I'm recording a lot more than I ever have before, is because I've gotten to a point where I realized it's now or never, but it's also me and me alone that can do this work. No one's going to make my life better for me, and the same goes for you. At a certain point, you're the only one that can improve your life. You're the only one that can get the reps in to improve whichever skill it is that you want to and whatever it is that you're going for. Ideally, it's going to be something that you feel is meaningful to you, that is helpful to others, and that makes things better. The world, the environment, your life. With that being said, I guess this channel is focusing with that being said, this channel is focusing on momentum, and it's focusing on going through the awkward phases. Allow yourself to start even if you don't feel ready, but learn as you go. Because if you're not careful, you'll waste days, weeks, months, years. And on the extreme side, even decades or a whole life just thinking about things that you could have done, should have done, would have done, and you actually never do any of it. And it's kind of a shame. You have talents and gifts and potential. Don't waste them. Instead, invest in yourself and see it as an exercise of not only making yourself better, but the world a better place around you. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Feel free to drop a like below and subscribe, as we're building a community here, and we look forward to seeing you more in the future and delivering more value and content as we continue on this journey of making new videos over the next 3 months. Much love, many blessings, and as always, good things to you and yours.